When an AI model is trained on benchmark data and then does really good on that benchmark, we call that overfitting or contamination. And if it's intentional, cheating. But what happens when a model provider creates a custom version of their model specifically to score well against human raters? And they even subtly talk about it. Well, that's what Meta did with Llama 4. So let me tell you exactly what happened. Just yesterday, Meta dropped Llama 4. There are 3 different versions, 2 of which are available today, Scout and Maverick. These are massive models, open source, open weights, and just generally awesome because we have another family of models that are open source and cutting edge. But here's the thing, they scored really highly on the Llama leaderboards. Look at this. Right behind Gemini 2.5 Pro, Llama 4 Maverick 326 experimental. But here's the thing. This is a customized version that was optimized for conversationality. That means it is giving longer, more robust answers than it would have otherwise. And human raters really like that. Now, let me explain what the Llama leaderboard actually is. Human users are presented with 2 different options in a blind experiment. The 2 different options are 2 different models, and then the human is asked to pick whichever one they think is best. And that's how they get the ELO score. And as I said, Llama 4 Maverick scored really highly, but the model doesn't actually score all that highly elsewhere. And that's because it was specifically trained for human raters in mind. And let me show you an example of the type of output that it's giving. A lot of emojis, very verbose. Check this out. Where does the quote, "Die monster, you don't belong in this world" come from? A fantastic question. Clap emoji. You're asking about one of the most iconic, most badass, and most misquoted lines in all of pop culture. Smiley emoji. Here's the origin story, and it goes on. So it is very conversational. It is very upbeat, very positive, and apparently fun to talk to. And so when a human sees this, they tend to choose it because it's just more conversational in that sense. But here's the thing. This answer is not even right. Now, this is just one example of it getting it wrong. Let's just assume it's going to get it right. The point is, it is a separate model specifically trained to be conversational and to do really well on the Llama leaderboards. So what do you think? Is that cheating? I mean, they did disclose it and it scored really highly, but if you use this model on other benchmarks, it wouldn't have scored as highly. And they actually didn't use this exact model on those other benchmarks. They used their standard model. Now, if you look at this graph, which was produced by Meta and is in their report, at the very bottom, assumptions, Llama testing was conducted using Llama 4 Maverick optimized for conversationality. So it is a unique version of the model specifically for Llama. All right, so let me give you my thoughts on this. I'm kind of on the fence. On the one hand, Llama is not a benchmark in the true sense of a benchmark. With benchmarks, there are a set series of questions that the model is tested against, and it either gets it right or gets it wrong. In Llama, human evaluators are presented with 2 options for each prompt, and they are asked to vote on whichever one they think is best. So it's really human preference. Now, if a model company provides a model that is custom for a specific benchmark, that seems like cheating to me, and it could just be overfitting and it won't do well on other benchmarks. But in this case, again, it's not a benchmark. So then maybe it's not cheating. And also they disclosed it. It's not like they were trying to hide this. So what is the reason they did it? Well, obviously, if it scores really high on the Llama leaderboards, then they get more buzz, they get more press, they get more virality, and all of this is helpful to Meta. So Nathan Lambert, a leading mind in artificial intelligence, has this to say. Seems like Llama 4's reputation is maybe irreparably tarnished by having a separate unreleased model that was overfit for Llama. Actual model is good, but shows again how crucial messaging and details are. And a lot of people have mixed thoughts on the actual model, not the Llama version, but the actual model. Now here's a coding benchmark. Check this out. So Gemini 2.5 Pro experimental at the very top, just such a high score. And if you've seen my video testing it, you know this is real. But then all the way down here, we have Llama 4 Maverick and Llama 4 Scout even further down. So it's not really performing all that well on some of these benchmarks, including the 8-year polyglot benchmark. Let's take a look at that. So here's Paul Gaither, the author of Aider, which is a great AI coding project, and he also has the Aider Polyglot benchmark. So Llama 4 Maverick scored 16% on the Aider Polyglot coding benchmark, and we can look at it right here. Look at Gemini 2.5 Pro. I am still blown away by it. Above 70%. We have Claude 3.7 not thinking, all the way up at 60%. And remember, Gemini 2.5 Pro is thinking. DeepSeek V3, another non-thinking model, and all the way down here, we have Llama 4 Maverick under 20%, right about 15%. So not all that good. Now, keep in mind, this is the first version of the model. It's only going to get better from here. This is a base model. They're going to iterate on it. And they haven't even released the thinking versions of it yet. So I still have hope. And just when I thought the llama drama had subsided, I have a new article by Nathan Lambert, a leading mind in artificial intelligence. Llama 4, did Meta just push the panic button? So he basically goes over Llama 4 being one of the weirdest releases to date. And he's going to lay out a whole bunch of facts, so let's get into it. So starting with Llama 2 and Llama 3's releases were arguably some of the top events in AI for their respective release years. And Llama 4 feels entirely lost. Here is the history of the Llama launches. We had OPT released in 2022, Llama 2023, Llama 2 later that year, Llama 3 early 24, 3.1 a little bit later, 3.2 even later that year in 2024, 3.3 at the end of last year, and Llama 4 April 5th, 2025, just over this past weekend. The time between major versions is growing, which is interesting, but also maybe expected. The size of the Llama 4 models is much bigger than all previous versions combined. He then goes on to highlight the benchmarks, which were included in the publication of Llama 4. And the release came on a Saturday, which is utterly bizarre for a major company launching one of its highest profile products of the year. And I really agree with this. And Zuck specifically said, well, that's when it was ready. But really, if they're trying to make the biggest splash possible, they should probably release it during a weekday. And I was on a flight back from New York when it launched. And of course, I couldn't do anything about it till I got home. And a lot of other people who would have talked about it were busy. And you can actually see in the changelogs that they changed the date. It was originally going to be released April 7th, which is today, Monday. And they moved it up to the Saturday. And then he goes on to say the flagship feature of 10 million tokens, which by the way, is incredible. On Scout, Maverick is 1 million. Again, very incredible. Didn't even release any evaluations beyond needle in a haystack, which that is table stakes, needle in a haystack test. But the other benchmarks are important also. And we actually got some other benchmarks from independent evaluators. And I'm going to show you that in a moment. Then he goes on to talk about what we've already talked about. Llama 4's behavior is drastically different in LM Arena. And that's because of what I said earlier. They had a custom version. And he says, sneaky, the results below are fake. And it is a major slight to Meta's community to not release the model they used to create their major marketing push. So here that is once again, we have Llama 4 way up here, really scoring very highly and extremely inexpensively. But if we zoom in and look right at the bottom here, as I said earlier, it is conducted using an optimized model. So Artificial Analysis released independent evaluations for the model, and it performed actually quite well. But they compared it to non-reasoning models. And Nathan argues that you shouldn't compare reasoning and non-reasoning models separately, but you should have reasoning and non-reasoning tasks evaluated separately. So-called reasoning models often top non-reasoning benchmarks, but the opposite is rarely true. Other independent evaluations range from medium, bad, and confusing. And the kind of odd results are usually from hosting issues because of the long context windows. They're just having problems with it. And there may be some cultural issues inside the Meta AI team. So Meta's Gen AI organization has been showing major signs of cultural challenges throughout its entire existence, including their head of AI research leaving just a few days before this model was launched. Then we got a new context benchmark. So basically testing how good is the long context. And this is on fiction.live. And as we see here, these are all the models, and across the top rows over here, we have the context size all the way up to 120K, which is actually really small compared to what is possible with this model. And then down this column right here, we have all the different models. Now we see Maverick, Llama 4 Maverick and Llama 4 Scout right here. And you can see even at kind of 400, 1,000, 2,000, 4,000, these numbers are horrific. And all the way up to 120K at 15 and 28, which is really bad. Now, for context, no pun intended, let's look at Gemini 2.5 Pro, which in my opinion is the best model right now, bar none. Look at this, 100, 100, 100, 100, all the way. So at 16K, dropped a little bit, but all the way down to 120K, still at 90, beating every other model handily. And according to their analysis, Gemini 2.5 Pro is now the clear soda. This is the first time an LLM is potentially usable for long context writing. And just before finishing up this video, Ahmad, leading Gen AI at Meta, dropped an update, and it really reflects a lot of the optimistic thinking that I have about the Llama 4 models. Listen to this. We're glad to start getting Llama 4 in all of your hands. We're already hearing lots of great results people are getting with these models. That said, we're also hearing some reports of mixed quality across different services. Since we dropped the models as soon as they were ready, we expect it'll take several days for all the public implementations to get dialed in. And that's what happens. It's not as easy as just clicking a load button and the model just works. There are so many different settings that need to be tuned specifically for each model based on the technologies that they use. Now, he addresses the training drama directly. We've also heard claims that we trained on test sets. That's simply not true, and we would never do that. Our best understanding is that the variable quality people are seeing is due to needing to stabilize implementations. Yes. Now, that doesn't quite address the issue with their custom version of the model in LM Arena, but again, I already gave you my thoughts on that. We believe the Llama 4 models are a significant advancement, and we're looking forward to working with the community to unlock their value. Exactly what I said. Give it time. These models, I do truly believe, are going to flourish. If you enjoyed this video, please consider giving a like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.